So I am here today to talk about occupational therapy. I've got a lovely quote from the Royal College of Occupational Therapists, and it's basically a long quote that doesn't really explain what OT is, and I think this is part of the confusion as to what I actually do for a living. But occupational therapy, it's a health and social care profession, and it's all about taking a whole person approach. So whatever your goals are, those are my goals too. It's not about me deciding what I think is best for you or doing things to you. It's about helping you guys to achieve what you want to achieve. OTs work equally in physical and mental health. You will find occupational therapists in everywhere from schools to prisons. We get around. So I'm going to start with a kind of an introduction about what occupation actually is. So a lot of you, when you hear occupation, think work, which is understandable, but to me, occupation refers to any kind of practical and purposeful activity. So it's anything you guys do that matters to you is an occupation. This can be anything that's important to you as a person, anything that speaks to your identity. So arts and crafts, knitting, equally as important as your job. Being a mum is just as important as working full-time or not. It's entirely up to you, and whatever matters to you matters to me. So occupational therapy is all about enabling you to do those activities, but equally the activities that you love doing have their own therapeutic benefits. So if I'm helping you to do arts and crafts without hand pain, I'm realising that actually arts and crafts is a fantastic way to build up strength in your fingers and to work on your fine motor control and your manual dexterity. So occupation is, from both sides of the coin, looking at things that you love doing, but also things that you love doing that help you in some way. So, what do? I work in independent practice. It basically means I'm self-employed and I work outside of the traditional OT setting. So I'm not in the NHS, I'm kind of separate from that. I teach self-management skills to people with long-term conditions via video chat, and I also work with the HMSA, as Donna said, as their professional liaison coordinator and as part of the social media team. So OTs are found anywhere and everywhere, but my particular setting is working quite often with people just like you. So people that don't quite fit into traditional services, those in grey areas with variable mobility that don't quite tick the boxes for all the nice NHS services. And those that kind of have variable needs and needs that don't necessarily get met by a lot of the services out there. So I work in grey areas. I teach my skills in clinics via video chat, so you can all stay home in your pyjamas and nobody minds. And it's all done sort of one-to-one. I am going to talk about a few of the strategies that I particularly love teaching today. So hopefully you'll get a kind of taster for how it works, but if you want more information on anything in particular, do just get in touch. So the first one I'm going to talk about is pacing. Pacing is something that I talk about so often, and it's something that everyone, for the most part, does not like, or they don't think it works, or they haven't got time for pacing. And I think the reason we all feel like this is because, generally speaking, it's not taught very well. You're told you need to pace, but nobody tells you how to do that. So pacing is actually fantastic for a lot of different symptoms, whether that's pain or fatigue, whether it's anxiety, whether it's mood disorders. Pacing can help with so many things, and it's basically the fine art of breaking up what you're doing into more manageable chunks. It can be taking more breaks. It can mean alternating between different tasks with different demands on your body. So if I say have a rest from washing up, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to do anything, but it means perhaps you can do something that challenges your body in different ways. So rest your hands but use your legs, or rest your brain but use your body. Do you know that there's a difference between doing nothing and doing something different? And something different is often a lot more productive. So pacing actually, great for POTS, great for anxiety, great for fatigue. It's actually much more efficient than just pushing through. So although it might feel like you haven't got time for it, if you're pacing properly, you're actually going to be saving time, and it's going to help you get more done with what little energy you've got without wasting it on kind of inefficient ways of doing things. So to really understand pacing, we're going to look at something called the boom and bust cycle, which has been mentioned once or twice today. Boom and bust is basically looking at activity patterns, and it's recognizing that you go through phases of high activity, a boom, and phases of very, very low activity, and that's a bust. Booms often cause a bust, and you end up in this kind of recovery mode where you eat, sleep, and hope you'll feel better, and that's pretty much it. Guessing a few of you have been there, yeah? So what we're looking to do with pacing is to level out these kind of peaks and troughs, to level out these booms and busts. So if you can just about make out the dotted line in the middle, What we're looking at is finding an activity level that allows you to do as much as possible without meaning that you need a whole day of recovery afterwards. So what you find when you're not pacing is that on Monday you might feel fantastic, you might do loads. On Tuesday you feel terrible, possibly as a result of doing loads on Monday. On Wednesday you're not feeling great, but because you spent Tuesday in bed you then have to do more to make it up, so you push yourself again. On Thursday you're feeling rubbish, so back to bed again. Friday, you're completely exhausted, but you need to keep going, so you try and push on and push on and push on. By the time you get to the weekend, you're so completely exhausted, you're non-functional, and you're 3 days behind with all of your work, and everything you have done is written in like kind of brain fog language that regular people can't understand. Okay, so what we're looking to do is to take all of this and to level it all out, so that on good days, you hold back a little bit, and on bad days, you've got that little bit more energy, and you have that fewer bad days, so you can do that bit more. So actually, when you look at what you're achieving over the course of the week, you're actually achieving more, because if you're going for the boom and bust pattern, that blue line, by the end of the week, you're not achieving very much at all, even on good days. Does that make sense? Yeah? Good. Fantastic. So, what we're looking to do is work out what this baseline, this dotted line is, and to stick to something fairly sensible most of the time. Okay, so, along with pacing, there's something called the micro break, which I'm a massive fan of. Micro breaks are quite often the most valuable kind of pacing to learn, because a micro break is something that you can do without looking like you're doing anything to make yourself feel better. So micro breaks are something that you can get away with doing and still looking normal, or nobody notices you're doing stuff to look after yourself, really. So this might be that if you've been typing for a few hours, you have a 30-second break and just stretch your hands and wrists out a little bit. Stretch your neck and your head, roll your shoulders a few times, actually remember to have a drink for the first time in 4 hours. These are little and often things that mean by the end of the time you've finished your activity, you're still functional. You can still keep going, you can still do what it is you need to do without that massive post-activity slump. So, micro breaks, fantastic for avoiding headaches, for staying hydrated, for remembering to eat and drink, remembering to take your medication. Things like that are particularly important when you're feeling tired already, because you forget to take your meds, you forget to have a drink, and then before you know it, you feel worse than ever. These are things we need to avoid, and micro breaks are a good way of doing that. So, moving on from pacing a little bit, pain management is something I do a lot about, and when I talk to people about pain management, often the first thing they come out with is the name of a medication they're taking. Fine. But there's quite a lot of stuff out there that you can do that's just as effective, that you can do in tandem with taking these medications, that actually is a very useful way to manage your pain. And I'm guessing quite a lot of you are already doing elements of this, and you're doing it without realizing. Because we're a naturally creative bunch, you learn to manage things in the ways that you can. So, posture, poor posture. I love talking about posture, because whenever you talk about posture, the entire audience sits up a little bit straighter unconsciously. Posture is something that you need to work on, and it's a long-term investment in your health. Particularly for things like back pain and shoulder pain and neck pain, posture is really, really important. And there are often solutions to this that are particularly simple and not particularly obvious. And these things might be, every time you sit on the toilet, you sit on the toilet with perfect posture. Every time you go to the loo, perfect posture. And I'm not asking you to go away tomorrow and to suddenly have developed perfect posture overnight, but if the next time you go to the loo, you try it, these things add up, and eventually what you'll find you're doing is sitting with good posture for longer and longer. So, in combination with physiotherapy, can be very good. Exercise as a pain management strategy. Now, this one can be a little controversial. A lot of people go, I can't exercise because it hurts. Well, it hurts anyway, doesn't it? So actually, if it hurts and you're building muscle tone, perhaps that's a better option. Gentle exercise, particularly gentle stretching. I know there's kind of a don't do yoga because you're hypermobile and your arms and legs will fall off thing. But if you're doing it safely, there is nothing wrong with stretching. Okay? It's a perfectly good way to relieve muscle tension, and it's a good way to spend your lunch break or a 5-minute coffee break. These things are good things to do. Distraction is a fantastic strategy. We will put a DVD on or read a book or put favourite tunes on when you're feeling in pain. Distraction, as simple as it sounds, does work for pain management. Relaxation, calming your breathing, easing the tension out of your muscles, focusing on something calm and feeling a bit zen for a while, very, very good. Particularly when you get that kind of pain panic where you've injured yourself and you're waiting to work out just how bad it is this time. Yeah? Or the kind of, oh, well, I've taken my meds, but they haven't kicked in yet, and I've somehow got to survive the next 20 minutes without peeling my own arms off. Breathing exercises here are actually very, very good. And they don't take a lot of effort and a lot of concentration. I'm not expecting you to sit cross-legged on the floor and meditate yourself to a desert island for half an hour, but 5 minutes of calming your breathing down can be just as effective. Mobility aids, great. Mobility aids are a tool. You use them when you need them. Owning a wheelchair does not make you a full-time wheelchair user. So a lot of people are a little bit hesitant to get a wheelchair because they feel like they're never going to walk again. It's not true. The vast majority of wheelchair users use it when they need it and then get up when they're done. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Heat and ice, we've all heard, heat and ice, it's good. Traditionally, heat is good for muscle aches and pains, for like chronic pain, and ice is good for kind of acute injuries. TENS machine, anyone tried one of them? Hopefully a few of you. Yeah. Electrical pain relief, fantastic, because you can use it in combination with all of the above strategies. And, you know, self-massage, things like that are really, really good. So actually being bendy sometimes has its perks because you can reach to massage your own joints where traditional people wouldn't have a chance. Equally, the little kind of plug-in or battery-operated massagey things you can lay on. Easy peasy. So, next bit, moving on. Joint protection. So joint protection principles are a series of rules that basically teach you to look after your joints. So I won't teach you how to use a knife and fork, but I will teach you positions that are safe to use so that you can apply that to knives and forks and to taps and to lifting and, you know, moving things. So respecting your pain is a really important part of that, but this is where the water gets a little bit muddy. Respecting your pain implies that when you feel pain, there's damage, but that isn't always the case. So learning to recognize the difference between ouch, that hurts, I've damaged something, and ouch, that just hurts, is a really useful part of learning to manage your condition. Pacing, again. Party tricks are a bad one. You probably all heard it. You grew up doing these things, but they are not good for you. Maintaining stable positions, again, is really important, but it's not always that easy if your stable range of motion isn't anywhere at all. Again, just working on ways. So as an example, if I had to pick something up, I wouldn't just lean over and do it. I would stand up, bend my knees, and pick it up properly. It may seem like more effort, but actually if there are less back injuries in the run, it's worth it. Splinting, avoiding overgripping, these are all things that a lot of us do, but it's about learning how to do it flexibly and learning how to do it in a way that most matches your needs. So you might have a massive long list of strategies, of aids and adaptations and splints. You do not have to use all of them all the time. You might go months and months and months without using something, but that doesn't mean you don't need it. It just means that you're using it appropriately. Okay. Sleep hygiene. Hands up if you've got painsomnia. Half the room, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, painsomnia is inability to sleep because of pain. And a lot of people I work with have painsomnia. One of the best things to do for this is to create a relaxing sleep environment and to create a routine. So a sleep environment is your bed. Your bed needs to be just for sleeping and maybe some other select adult activities. It's not for watching DVDs, it's not for reading books, it's not for pajama parties. If you do these things in bed, when you get into bed, your body goes, oh good, it's DVD time, not, oh good, it's time to sleep. So it's about teaching your body that laying in bed means going to sleep. And that association is really, really important. So a sleep routine helps to reinforce that. So it might be that your sleep routine is as simple as cleaning your teeth, putting on pajamas, and brushing your hair. If that's it, do those three things in the same order every night. Because it's about creating that reinforcement that, okay, it's sleep time now, brain needs to turn off, legs need to behave, it's bedtime. And anything you can do to reinforce that is really, really good. Avoiding clock watching is a key one. So you've all done that thing where you look at your clock and it's 3 in the morning and you're working out how many hours you've got left before you have to get up, at which point you have a bit of a panic attack because you really don't want to get up in 2 hours or 3 hours. Clock watching is a nightmare. So turn your clock around if you have to have one. Don't look at the time. Once you've set your alarm at night once, stop, don't look again. This is particularly useful because looking at phones and smartphones actually wakes you up. So the same blue light waves that smartphones give off are the same as daylight. And that tricks your body into thinking it's daylight outside every time you look at your smartphone. But it's not. It's 2 in the morning and you're exhausted. So we try to avoid smartphones, and we try to avoid clock watching, and we try to avoid having naps late in the day, all to reinforce the fact that when you go to bed, it is to sleep. And hopefully, if you do all of these things enough, your body will get the message. Okay. Aids and adaptations. So a lot of people here will probably be using small aids, whether it's pen grips or adaptive cutlery or bigger things like a wheelchair or a scooter. These things are variable because we have a variable condition. The way you use them also needs to be variable. So owning something does not mean you have to use it, and variable conditions mean variable support. So if you're anything like me, you've got, a house that's 99% disability aids that looks a little bit like some kind of mobility showroom rather than a living room. You might have a crutch, you might have 2 crutches, you might have 2 different kinds of crutches and a walking stick and a trekking pole, because on different days you need different things. This is 100% approved by me. So if anyone questions your need for 8 different kinds of walking stick, tell them an occupational therapist said it was okay. The best way you can learn to manage your health is to learn to manage every single element of your health. So, this might be that you have a wheelchair, but stuff can be 2 things. My wheelchair is sometimes just a chair. Sometimes I just sit in it because it's comfortable, but I'll get up and walk around. Sometimes when I arrive at hotels and I only want to make 1 trip from the car, I put absolutely everything on my chair and push it up the hill. It's still useful. It's still aiding me. It is still serving its purpose as an aid, even if I'm not sat in it. Quite often at university, when I was doing my degree, I would wheel 2 lectures, sit in my chair for lectures, and then leave my chair there and walk to lunch. And the reason being that every single university goes out of their way to buy horribly uncomfortable chairs. Yeah, students in the room will be nodding, yeah. So actually, the way that my wheelchair helped me most was by providing back support. I didn't need it if my legs were feeling good to walk around with, but I'm still using it. And that's okay. Just because society seems to think that everyone who ever gets in a wheelchair becomes a paraplegic does not mean you have to live up to that. Yeah? Okay. So, again, on the kind of flip side balance of that, if you're using aids and adaptations to make your life easier, what you need to do is step up your kind of physiotherapy and your exercise to balance that out. So if I use a wheelchair because my legs hurt, that same day I will spend a little bit extra time doing physiotherapy to make sure I'm not losing the muscle mass that I rely on. So fitness is a really, really important part of using these aids and adaptations. If I'm using speech-to-text software to avoid typing up notes when I work with clients, I will do that with a headset on, and I'll do hand therapy with like therapy putty or with a foam ball or something, so that I am still using my hands, but it's in a productive way rather than a kind of wishy-washy, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, my hands hurt a bit kind of way. So it's about kind of a mindful, intense approach to, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need to do. It does not matter that my entire house is full of disability aids, because that's what I need it to be. So yeah, with this in mind, it is totally okay to be a wheelchair user, but also to take up jogging. That's fine. People seem to think that it isn't, but it is. I have plenty of friends who are very, very active sporting people, but are also wheelchair users. And the reason they are active people is because they are wheelchair users. If they weren't using the chair, they would not have the energy to be active. And that's what all these aids and adaptations are about for me. It's about giving you guys the options to do something with your life besides existing. So yeah, I like to challenge people as often as possible. I will quite blatantly and quite obviously act out things that people think are impossible for disabled people. You know, you've probably all seen the memes of, you know, Miracle in the alcohol aisle where somebody stands up out of their chair to reach a bottle of gin. I do it all the time, deliberately, just to start conversations. Yeah, because I feel like the more people know that that's an option, the less hassle the next generation of people gets. So the more time I spend doing things a bit weird, the more people see that, the less people have to ask the next person how it is possible that they're doing something like that. So yeah, you know, disability stuff, and actually regular aid, things don't have to be disability aids either. So if you're ever in a pen and in a bank, and they've got those little pens on the chains, the really tiny, really thin, really hard to write with pens. If you've got long hair and you carry a hairband around with you, just tie the hairband around the pen and you've got an instant pen grip. So you don't actually have to carry all these things around. You can make do with, whatever you've got laying around. So if anyone watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jake Peralta, stuff can be two things. Definitely can. Okay. So I am overheating a little bit and I'm going to skip ahead to the end. But basically, I would like to finish with a quote, and it's hoping for the best, prepared for the worst, and unsurprised by anything in between. So what we're aiming to do here is to make your living with variable things easier by having a variable approach. So hopefully, if you come out of this with 1,000,001 coping strategies and 1,000,001 ideas for ways to adapt your life, then mission accomplished. I hope this has been useful. Thank you all very much for listening.